New York City is taking bold steps to bring an end to systemic racism. Since March of this year, the Racial Justice Commission has been examining the discriminatory practices that have kept communities marginalized and underserved.
Yeah, the commission heard testimonies from community leaders, local organizations, and the general public about patterns of inequity and discrimination in education, housing, and public safety. And that panel using the information to try to develop a roadmap for racial justice. Well, here to explain how it's going to impact the future of New York City is Jennifer Jones-Austin. She serves as the chair of the Racial Justice Commission. Good morning, Jennifer. We thank you for joining us.
Good morning, and thank you. Thank you for this important conversation.
All right, let's get to it. Structural racism. It's a very broad term. The commission only had 9 months to tackle the mission. Now, how did the panel decide what areas to focus on first?
Well, the first thing we did was we appreciated that we were not going to, in 9 months, upend 400 plus years of intentional racism here in this city and in this nation. So what we did was we first agreed upon what racism is all about. Racism is about holding up an unbalanced power structure that allows those with privilege to continue to have at the expense of others. And what we did was we centered on where in the New York City Charter, the Constitution, does power really play out. We looked at power, access, and opportunity, and what we could begin to do to dismantle those laws within the Charter that uphold this imbalanced power structure.
Now, this pandemic that we're still in has highlighted racial disparities in education, healthcare services, public safety. So did the commission uncover similar findings?
Absolutely, absolutely. One of the issues, the challenges that we have when we talk about racism in this nation is we often center only on policing, but racism pervades every pillar of our society. We see disparities consistently playing out in health outcomes, education outcomes, wages discrimination, and inequity. What we did was we looked at not just what we saw, what people said, what we already knew, but why. Why does this persist? And what we saw were things like, the New York City Charter allows for, unequal siting of quality hospitals and education programs in more affluent communities. We saw, like in city government, that there are people of color, women of color, who aren't really getting ahead. They're not being paid at the same levels for quality work as other people. So we saw these examples and we looked at why is that actually happening?
Jennifer, leveling the playing field is certainly going to require changes to the way the city operates. To that end, the commission came up with 3 ballot proposals that New Yorkers are going to have to weigh in on. Can you break down these 3 measures for us?
Absolutely. The first is a preamble. The New York City Charter, the New York City Constitution does not have a preamble. It's a statement of foundational values and beliefs that should guide the city in how it engages with every New Yorker. So we put in place, and hopefully the voting electorate will act on this, a preamble that says every New Yorker should expect in partnering with its government to have certain basic resources and supports, not only to survive, but to thrive. We said that in New York City should have an Office of Racial Equity, which essentially holds the city accountable for ensuring that every city agency upholds equity in its mission and in its functioning. So every city agency will have to develop an equity plan every 2 years with data, with metrics, with goals, and with outcomes that it has to strive towards, coupled with a Racial Justice Commission comprised of people from the community who are going to partner with government and hold government accountable. And then finally, the third proposal provides for a true cost of living measure. Currently, all across this nation, we use the federal poverty measure, which is dated and antiquated. It says that a family of 4 anywhere in this nation needs just $26,500 to technically not be poor. But we know that here in New York, a family of 3, a mother with 2 young children, needs as much as $95,000 in the Bronx. Well, what happens is you use that measure to then set up wages, policies, programs. And if that measure is discounted, people who need are not going to have the wages and the resources that they need. So we've got a true cost of living that is now a proposal.
So if those proposals all go through, these are the words we've been hearing a lot lately: diversity, equity, inclusion. Do you think that these new proposals, if they do follow through, are going to help make those changes happen?
So we believe that they are the beginning of making those changes happen. The Charter sets up the laws and the functioning of the government. We must have an Office of Racial Equity that centers on the racism and the harms that resulted for 400 plus years, and to begin to correct those wrongs, not just, looking backwards, but looking forward. An Office of Racial Equity will do that. But we know that these measures are just the beginning. It's going to have to be a continuous effort to look at how racism pervades our criminal justice system, our education system, our health system. And so the city agencies working on this will take that big step forward.
Still a lot to accomplish, Jennifer. We really appreciate your time this morning. Jennifer Jones, Austin, thank you again, and good luck with those proposals.
Thank you. Thank